Again they jolted to a stop and the horns howled all around them. Harry sat there until a muscle in the side of his jaw began to twitch. Suddenly he pounded on the horn with both fists. "Shut up!" he yelled. "For the love of heaven, shut up!" Abruptly he slumped back. "Sorry," he mumbled. "It's my damned headache. I've got to get out of this." "Job getting you down?" "No, it's a good job. At least everybody tells me so. 25 hours a week, $300, the car, the room, the telescreen, and liquor and yellow jackets. Plenty of time to kill, unless it's the time that's killing me." "But what do you want?" Harry stepped on the accelerator and they inched along. Now the street widened into 8 traffic lanes and the big semis joined the procession on the edge of the downtown area. "I want out," Harry said. "Out of this." "Don't you ever visit the national preserves?" Fraser asked. "Sure I do. Fly up every vacation. Take a tame plane to a tame government resort and catch my quota of 2 tame fish. Great sport. If I got married, I'd be entitled to 4 tame fish. But that's not what I want. I want what my father used to talk about. I want to drive into the country without a permit, mind you. Just to drive wherever I like. I want to see cows and chickens and trees and lakes and sky." "You sound like a naturalist." "Don't sneer. Maybe the naturalists are right. Maybe we ought to cut out all this phony progress and phony peace that passeth all understanding. I'm no liberal, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I think the naturalists have the only answer." "But what can you do about it?" Fraser murmured. "Suppose for the sake of argument that they are right. How can you change things? We can't just will ourselves to stop growing, and we can't legislate against biology. More people in better health with more free time are just bound to have more offspring. It's inevitable under the circumstances. And neither you nor I nor anyone has the right to condemn millions upon millions of others to death through war or disease." "I know," Harry said. "It's hopeless, I guess. All the same, I want out." He wet his lips. "Fraser, you're on the board here. You've got connections higher up. If I could only get a chance to transfer to ag culture, go on one of those farms as a worker." Fraser shook his head. "Sorry, Harry. You know the situation there, I'm sure. Right now there's roughly 90 million approved applications on file. Everybody wants to get into ag culture." "But couldn't I just buy some land and get a government contract for foodstuffs?" "Have you got the bucks? A minimum 40 acres leased from one of the farm corporations will cost you 200,000 at the very least, not counting equipment." He paused. "Besides, there's vocational apt. What did your tests show?" "You're right," Harry said. "I'm supposed to be an agency man until I die, or retire on my pension at 50 and sit in my little room for the next 50 years, turning to the telescreen every morning to hear some loudmouthed liar tell me it's a beautiful day in Chicago. Who knows? Maybe by that time we'll have 100 billion people enjoying peace and progress and prosperity, all sitting in little rooms and—" "Watch out!" Fraser grabbed the wheel. "You nearly hit that truck." He waited until Harry's face relaxed before relinquishing his grip. "Harry, you'd better go in for a checkup. It isn't just a headache with you, is it?" "You're not fooling," Harry told him. "It isn't just a headache." He began to think about what it really was, and that helped a little. It helped get him through the worst part, which was the downtown traffic and letting Fraser off and listening to Fraser urge him to see a doctor. Then he got to the building parking area and let them take his car away and bury it down in the droning darkness where the horns hooted and the headlights glared. Harry climbed the ramp and mingled with the 10:30 shift on its way to the elevators. 18 elevators in his building to serve 80 floors. 9 of the elevators were express to the 15th floor. 3 were express to 65. He wanted one of the latter. And so did the mob. The crushing, clinging mob. They pressed and panted the way mobs always do. Mobs that lynch and torture and dance around bonfires and guillotines and try to drag you down to trample you to death because they can't stand you if your name is Harry and you want to be different. They hate you because you don't like powdered eggs and the telescreen and a beautiful day in Chicago. And they stare at you because your forehead hurts and the muscle in your jaw twitches and they know you want to scream as you go up, 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 and try to think why you get a headache from jerking your head to the left. Then Harry was at the office door, and they said good morning when he came in, all 80 of the typists in their outer office working their electronic machines and offering him their electronic smiles, including the girl he had made electronic love to last Saturday night, and who wanted him to move into a 2-room marriage and have children, lots of children, who could enjoy peace and progress and prosperity. Harry snapped out of it, going down the corridor. Only a few steps more and he'd be safe in his office, his own private office, almost as big as his apartment. And there would be liquor and the yellow jackets in the drawer. That would help. Then he could get to work. What was today's assignment? He tried to remember. It was Wilmer Kibbe, wasn't it? Telescreen ads for Wilmer Kibbe, makers of window glass. Window glass. He opened his office door and then slammed it shut behind him. For a minute everything blurred, and then he could remember. Now he knew what caused him to jerk his head, and what gave him the headaches when he did so. Of course, that was it. When he sat down at the table for breakfast in the morning, he turned his head to the left, because he'd always done so, ever since he was a little boy in what was then Wheaton, sitting at the breakfast table and looking out of the window, looking at summer sunshine, spring rain, autumn haze, the white wonder of new fallen snow. He'd never broken himself of the habit. He still looked to the left every morning, just as he had today, but there was no window any more. There was only a blank wall, and beyond it the smog and the clamor of the crowds. Window glass. Wilmer Kibbe had problems. Nobody was buying window glass anymore. Nobody except the people who put up buildings like this. There were still windows on the top floors, just like the window here in his office. Harry stepped over to it, moving very slowly because of his head. It hurt to keep his eyes open, but he wanted to stare out of the window. Up this high you could see above the smog. You could see the sun like a radiant jewel packed in the cotton cumulus of clouds. If you opened the window you could feel fresh air against your forehead. You could breathe it in and breathe out the headache. But you didn't dare look down. Oh no, never look down. Because then you see the buildings all around you. The buildings below, black and sooty, their jagged outlines like the stumps of rotten teeth. And they stretched off in all directions as far as the eye could attain. Row after row of rotten teeth grinning up from the smog-choked throat of the streets. From the maw of the city far below came this faint but endless howling, this screaming of traffic and toil. And you couldn't help it. You breathed that in too, along with the fresh air, and it poisoned you, and it did more than make your head ache. It made your heart ache, and it made your soul sick, and it made you close your eyes and your lungs and your brain against it. Harry reeled, but he knew this was the only way. Close your brain against it, and then, when you opened your eyes again, maybe you could see the way things used to be. It was snowing out, and it was a wet snow, the very best kind for snowballs and making snowmen, and the whole gang would come out after school. But there was no school. This was Saturday, and the leaves were russet and gold and red, so that it looked as if all the trees in the world were on fire, and you could scuff them when you walked, and pile up fallen leaves from the grass and roll in them. And it was swell to roll down the front lawn in summer. Just roll right down to the edge of the sidewalk, like it was a big hill, and let Daddy catch you at the bottom laughing. Mama laughed too, and she said, "Look, it's springtime. The lilacs are out. Do you want to touch the pretty lilacs, Harry?" And Harry didn't quite understand what she was saying, but he reached out, and they were purple and smelled of rain and soft sweetness, and they were just beyond the window. If he reached a little further he could touch them. And then the snow and the leaves and the grass and the lilacs disappeared, and Harry could see the rotten teeth again, leering and looming and snapping at him. They were going to bite. They were going to chew. They were going to devour, and he could not stop them. Couldn't stop himself. He was falling into the howling jaws of the city. His last conscious effort was a desperate attempt to gulp fresh air into his lungs before he pinwheeled down. Fresh air was good for headaches. End of Chapter 1 of This Crowded Earth by Robert Bloch.